everybody. Welcome to Dim Lights Horror, the podcast that tells classic and modern stories from around the world for you to hear. Now please, take a seat, dim your lights, and join me in today's story by Reddit user Jackie effing Vincent. It wants my liver. Johnny, Johnny, I want your liver. It was bold, written with a rough hand, smudged in several places, and almost unreadable. Even so, the more I looked at it, the clearer it got. It was without a doubt what the note said. In case you were wondering, I'm Johnny, or Jonathan, if we're being pedantic. The note in question was written on an old, yellowed piece of paper. Old to the point where it was wary to even call it paper. It seemed to crumble to my touch, as if just existing on my desk proved too much for it. I creased my brow as I looked at it. My first thought, my younger brother seemed reasonable. Who else could get such a sorry letter onto my desk? That probably wasn't right though. For all his annoying traits, he wasn't anywhere near bright enough to think something like this up. And yes, I'm aware how little it would take, and no, I'm not exaggerating. Maybe one of my parents? They never shied away from a good prank, but their methods were always wholesome. Nothing like this random note-looking bullcrap. That just left Seth. Yeah, that seems about right. I ruffled through my pants to get my phone. It always seemed to find its way into the deepest pits of my pocket. I pulled up Seth's contact and gave him a call. That damn stoner was the most likely culprit, but even so, a prank like this did seem a little bit of character for him.
Yo, John, what's up, my man?
Seth answered. Hey, Seth. I was just checking to see if you had anything to do with this letter I found.
Letter? Doesn't ring the bell. What does it say?
It just says, Johnny, Johnny, I want your liver.
That's it? Mind if I come over and take a look? I'm bored as hell, and at the very least, it sounds like a bit of fun.
Yeah, sure. Bring some snacks if you've been smoking, though. Last time you had the munchies, you almost bankrupted us with all the food you ate.
Yeah, I'll be over in a bit.
That eliminated Seth from the running as well. But at least we would have some snacks to figure things out. He came around an hour later, at 4:30. He usually pulls stuff like this, showing up later in the day. But he normally just chilled in the basement when that happened. His parents never seemed to care when he stayed out too late. So, where's this creepy note of yours, Johnny? I want to see it, Seth said, moving towards my desk. It's just there, but don't touch it. It's on its last legs. I warned him, not that he'd listen. Seth looked over for a few seconds before finally concluding, as I had, it was just a stupid prank. In the end, the two of us fell into old habits and played some games to think things over, until eventually we completely forgot about the letter. A few hours passed while we played, and Seth decided to stay the night and headed to the basement to get some sleep. I decided to do the same and laid down in my bed. Then I heard the voice. The night had taken hold. The sun escaped, and leaving only the moon to light the outside. I wasn't yet comfortable in my bed, and Seth had only left a few minutes ago. But regardless, the noise was there. The voice was there. "Johnny, Johnny, I want your liver." It echoed into the window, faint and seemingly far away, and yet definitely clear. I sat up in my bed, looking around my room. The slow, meandering worlds unnerved me. The childlike tone was even scary. I considered opening my window to shout at whatever or whoever was making that damn racket, but the reality was beginning to set in. Who was making that noise? And what if it intended to make good on its promise? I didn't want to know the answer to either of those questions, so I sat in my bed, unmoving. I still figured it was a prank, but as the voice continued, I tried focusing a little harder. Every few seconds, rhythmically, it repeated, always the same beckoning call. "Johnny, Johnny, I want your liver." Always childlike and excited. I figured it came from just outside the fence of my family's house. It surrounded the entire property, but was only about 20 feet away from the front door where the voice likely originated. The voice continued for about 10 minutes. I checked the clock. 1:30. Me and Seth had been up later than I thought. I tried disregarding it, but the length of the calls eliminated every reasonable explanation. And the time of night? Who would be up that damn late? I figured I was getting nowhere, so I went to bed. Properly this time. But the unease stuck with me even as I drifted off into a deep sleep. And beyond that, the fear. I woke up just before noon, around 11, to the sound of Seth turning on my TV. That damn stoner, always turning on my TV while I'm in bed. "Seth, turn that damn thing off. I'll join you in a bit," I groaned. "Yeah, okay, man. I'll just wait here, if that's all good," Seth said as he reached to turn off the TV. Wait, that sounded off. Seth normally never wanted to stay in my room, especially when I was annoyed and sleepy. I pulled off the covers to get a good look at him, and there I saw it. Bloodshot eyes looked back at me, encircled by the dark discs surrounding his sunken eyes. His skin was clammy and wet, and he was ghostly pale. "What the hell happened to you last night, man?" I said, my voice slurring with the effect of sleep. I heard a voice. A kid's voice," Seth said shakily. My heart almost grinded to a halt, and I felt my breath catch. I tried stifling a grasp, but Seth caught on, and his eyes widened in terror. I almost felt myself hyperventilating, but managed to calm my breaths. All the while, Seth and I looked at one another. "I guess I'm not the only one then, huh?" Seth said. Yeah, but is that a good thing? Seth almost collapsed as the implications I had already considered dawned on him. If it was just one of us, it could be the wind, hallucinations, or any other thing out of the billion stupid possibilities. But both of us? Someone was out there, and they may not be here just for the giggles. Seth and I sat up in silence for a while after that, and after the silence, we planned. The two of us tried to think up anything it could be, with some mixed results. In the end, though, we came to a conclusion. Seth would stay at my place that night, and we'd see what happened from there. The day faded quickly, and the tiredness set in soon after. Seth and I weren't gonna pull an all-nighter or anything, but we needed to see what was going on. We decided to play games and spend our time as best as we could, like last night. The hours stretched on, and until we hit the same time, as the clock ticked over 1:30, we braced ourselves. The game stopped. Our fingers halted their movement. Seth and I shared a glance at one another. I could see the sweat beading on his forehead, matching my own. The silence screamed in our ears, accompanied by only the ticking of the clock on the wall and our shaken breaths. Then it came. "Johnny, Johnny, I want your liver." The jovial call of the sick prankster came again. I could almost hear the smile he wore while he shouted it. Shouted it. He wasn't shouting. He was closer. I looked to Seth again, and his face was wreathed in the mask of fear. We both expected it. We both knew it could happen again. But Seth couldn't take it. His legs gave out from under him, and he fell with a loud groan. I stood up to meet him, to try to catch him. My mind screamed at me to stop, as though by leaving my chair, I was leaving everything safe in this world. It was as if by leaving my chair, I was going to where it could get me. Seth hit the floor with a thud, mumbling under his breath that it was gonna get him, that somehow whoever was out there would really come and take his liver. I went to the floor and picked him up, catching a glimpse at his eyes. They had almost glazed over. Whatever fear this was, it wasn't his fear. This reaction simply wasn't natural. I had to check on my family. What would be happening to them? If they hadn't heard it last night, surely they could hear it now. Where last night it came from outside the gate. Tonight, it sounded like it came from the front yard. I knew I needed to get out of my room to check on my family, to make sure they were all right. But no matter what, I couldn't convince my body to move me outside my door. And with that realization, the realization that I was a coward, I crumpled beside Seth and drifted off to sleep. When I did, I could have sworn the smile on its face grew a little wider while he said those words. Seth and I both woke laying on the floor, almost spooning each other. Seth was still trembling a small amount, his hands shaking. I was mostly a husk, barely able to rise from the floor and out to get breakfast. My mind convinced me that as soon as I left my room, it would get me. I held my side, where I thought my liver was. In truth, I wasn't exactly sure where that might be. I eventually allowed Seth to pull me up from the floor. and eventually out into the kitchen. We both made some breakfast, toast for me and some eggs for him. We sat on the kitchen table in stunned silence. Thank you all for listening. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe and leave a comment. I value your feedback. And if you're listening on Spotify, click the follow button to hear more stories from Dim Lights Horror. And be sure to take a look at my Facebook and Instagram. Just look up Dim Lights Horror in the search bar. Good night, everybody.